Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
The Walt Disney Company is 100 years old. But how much longer can the House of Mouse stay standing if they keep going in their current direction?
So the house the mouse built turned into a world. My contention is it is really difficult when you move from Disneyland to Disney World to maintain control over an entire world. Quite a challenge.
Hey, watch yourself, pal. You start there. I was struck with how my week began with Christmas in America 1928, the inspiration of a young girl who said, why don't you do 1928 when Mickey was born? And all the things you found in 1928, I think it was anecdotally the best Christmas in America ever in script.
Yeah, it was great to have you there.
Oh, it was just
really
the music, this everything. I can't encourage people enough to go to the public square and listen to it. But, to go from that and the creation of Mickey and sound and entertainment for kids, Walt's, and I attended his creative school, imagination and creation, and then to what it's come today. I reading that story this morning on our morning show, and then you said, well, let's delve deeper in 1850. And I mean, wow, what 100 years.
Yeah,
what 100 years.
Full disclosure, I still wear a Mickey Mouse watch. And the reason for that is because years ago, as long ago as I can remember, studying the emergence and the ascendancy of Walt Disney as a corporate leader, as a leader in entertainment, as a survivor of multiple bankruptcy, nervous breakdowns. I mean, the pioneer in not just animation,
a
but
great brother story too, right?
Sound and these two brothers. I mean, this is an American story. Now, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There are plenty of ups and downs and inside outs. I mean, for example, Walt Disney was part of the original America First organization, which prior to the day of Pearl Harbor was America's greatest isolationist political organization. And Disney was a part of that. The day after Pearl Harbor, America First, the isolationist Keep America Out of War organization, disbanded completely, 100%. So they saw the error of their ways instantly and repented. I mean, there's plenty of places where you could see Walt Disney, ramming into a wall. And, the fact that it had to be named his company and the fact that his original animation drawings were stolen from him and someone else copyrighted them and basically took away his company. And it is a genuine, real story. So I wear the watch out of respect for this little tiny idea that became so prevalent. But then that wasn't good enough because Walt's, the ultimate politics of the era would certainly make anyone who's thoughtful wonder how much do you really want to be a devotee or even an advocate of Disney, of which I am not. However, I had an experience when I was at the White House at a presidential briefing with Ronald Reagan. Small group. You've been there. Mm-hmm. You know what the game's like. You've seen the media thing, the whole thing. So we're there in a small briefing, and the president comes out, and I was impressed with a number of things. Number one, he's a lot bigger guy than people realized. He was a bigger gentleman than people thought. Much more muscular. Obviously, this guy was really serious about physical fitness and they said he was chopping wood on the ranch and all. That's what he was doing. And my mind just started wandering. I'm sitting there with all these luminaries, and I'm looking at the president, and I'm thinking to myself. I looked down and I realized that I was wearing my Mickey Mouse watch, and I thought to myself, I wonder if I'm the only person among these luminaries sitting with the president of the United States that has a Mickey Mouse watch on. And sitting there in my own thoughts, I had like a DelGiorno moment. I'm in my own head. I start smiling.
Those were good times when you were worried about a Mickey Mouse watch instead of a Mickey Mouse president. But
I digress. I'm sitting there and I start smiling. The president's making a very serious point, and I'm smiling. And all of a sudden, I catch, like out of the corner of my eye, left and right, that those guys that stand there that look like you went to high school with them, that have the suits on, that have large bulges.
Yeah, that's Secret Service.
Yeah, those folks that have very large weapons underneath their arms are all looking right at me. I'm the only guy in the room that's smiling.
And they're not wearing Mickey Mouse watches.
And I thought to myself, okay, this is not a good idea. But then a thought came to me. Jesus had a magnificent statement in the book of Matthew. He says, unless you change and become like little children, you could never enter the kingdom of heaven. And I am sitting in the most powerful room with the most powerful people in the world, blah, 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 blah. And I'm laughing, childishly reflecting on the fact that I know I don't belong here.
Well, I've had great experiences in my teen years. I used to go to Disney World every summer with my best friend and his family, and I've cherished memories of the parks. There's a whole business model story there. Did they become too big? And no matter how many they built, and some failed and some didn't, people wanted to come to Florida. Walt Disneyland is basically just the Magic Kingdom. But, Disney World had, Magic Kingdom, and then we had Epcot. We were working on and building
6. I don't know how many.
Yeah.
How many? 6. It's over 6
Then
square
it just
miles.
gets to be too crowded. Then the hotels become more and more expensive and less service oriented. And so it's not what it was with a child. We wanted to talk about movies and stuff and wokeness, but I mean, when I think of some of my favorite movies, David, they're Disney. Remember the Titans, Disney. Miracle, one of the greatest stories on ice in Olympic history, is Disney. I mean, I could go down.
One of my favorite movies of all time is The Kid, one of Bruce Willis's first movies. People don't even know that movie exists. It's one of the best movies.
Invincible.
My grandkids still love Herbie the Love Bug.
Oh, you're going back to those ones. I'm talking about like modern day, though. Secretariat. These are great.
Oh, Secretariat's a
Listen,
fantastic film.
if Disney wanted to, this is what I don't want to be lost in this conversation. If they wanted to, they still have the creative minds like Walt. They can tell stories. They could do a great job. They're choosing not to. They're putting agenda above imagination, creativity.
And they're hiring the people who are making those choices by intention and design. And what prompted this conversation is you and I think we're swapping the same story at the same time in the middle of the morning. Or actually, it's not the middle of the morning. It's very early
middle of the night.
When we start sharing stories in the middle of the night, because Disney had a filing, as all major publicly traded corporations have to do. It's called a 10K filing for the SEC, where you have to advise your shareholders and potential shareholders of potential risks that are facing your company. And recently, and I'm paraphrasing, Disney in their latest report acknowledged out loud in writing and in a legal document that the politics that's coming out of their C-suite offices and their creative offices is without a doubt putting them at risk in regards to their shareholder value.
Actually, you're being kind paraphrasing. Can I read the word? Because I actually laughed out loud over this. You were laughing over your Mickey Mouse watch. We face risks relating to misalignment with the public and consumer tastes and preferences. What a nice filing way of saying, we're putting our agenda and shoving beliefs that our customers won't want down their throat. And then they come right out and spell it out. Later, it says, generally, our revenues and profitability are adversely impacted when our entertainment offerings and products, as well as our methods to make our offerings and products available to consumers, do not achieve sufficient consumer acceptance. Okay, that's where you spend a lot of money on what you think is going to be a blockbuster and it flops. Okay, I get that sentence. Watch the next sentence. Further, don't you love that? Oh, and further to that, consumers' perceptions of our position on matters of public interest, including our efforts to achieve certain aspects of our environmental and social goals, often differing widely and presenting risks to our reputation and brands. But other than that, everything's great. Oh, and our stocks are down from $200 to $90, and we just lost how many billions on the last 5 movies?
It makes you wonder when the shareholders are going to rise up in litigation to basically come against this corporate agenda that's literally driving their investments into the ground.
They don't care what you, the viewer, want. They're going to socialize you. They're going to stay committed to their message. They don't care if they deliver profits. And that's where I got this vision of, you use the word worldview, which is probably most accurate, although at some point, we all look at like the climate change people and go, this is almost becoming like a religion to these people.
No, yeah, it is.
And then this is a religion. In fact, this kind of had that feeling of fellowshipping of suffering kind of a thing. In their gospel, they're willing to lose billions. That's how much this is their utmost belief and affection and priority.
But let's be clear here. They're a little bit like the federal government. They're losing somebody else's money.
Well, yeah.
That's the key. It's not theirs. And the other thing about Disney is they build with other people's money. You know, all those amazing buildings they continue to build and their timeshares and everybody else. Let's not kid each other. They're not pulling that out of corporate assets. They have their ability to borrow money and make investments is astronomical. They're a company that's so large they're completely self-insured. They have, in essence, their own police force. All right. And now this brings us into the problems with DeSantis in Florida and how that has also been spun. You know, why would you go to war with a host state that has treated you as a special entity, as a country? I mean, the state of Florida has treated Disney World from the beginning as if it really was a world.
Well, David, because business takes a back seat to their utmost affection and highest priority, which is the socialization of the next generation.
But here's the gig about business in Florida. Disney, as far as what they've done to the Central Florida economy, is nothing wonderful. They take a huge amount of assets to take care of. I-4's never been right for the last 30 years because of the resort areas, and Disney's the primary developer in that area. The people of Florida pay a huge price to be the host of Disney, and Disney doesn't pay the kind of salaries that have altered Central Florida's economy. Oh, sure, there's tons of jobs there, but they're not great paying jobs.
No, or they're entry level and or retirement type.
The retirement jobs, yeah.
Now, the
people
big
stand in
money
line to
jobs, that's for their, special people
and there
of
are
creation.
Very, very few of them. So the number of jobs that they create, well, okay, would the sunshine create that many jobs anyways? Or would the sunshine create jobs that are far less expensive to the people of Florida, everybody else? I mean, it's not the kind of thing that you ought to be walking around acting like you're king of the world. And I think that's where they got into it with DeSantis, because there are so many people from the LGBTQ community that are connected around Disney, they decided they wanted to use their pressure on their employer to get Disney involved in politics, and Disney fell for that. Well, it's been a bad situation ever since, because now they're not only going into an agenda that really is difficult to hold, to proudly display, and at the same time say, all families come in here. I mean, they don't even use ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls anymore. That was one of their famous taglines. They don't even use it. They've become so desperately controversial. And so it's not only the question of the shareholders. Now they're at war in their own home state with their own legislature, with their own governor. And they're making out like there's some kind of social crusading heroes going to war in a state that literally gave the Reedy Creek District, this little governmental agency that controls so much about how Disney expands and is taxed and everything else. They had their own, Disney owned its own city council. In essence, it owned its own world. And they go to war with the people that made all of that available to them. And Disney did it. They started it.
When you subscribe to 1850 Main Street, you're the first to find out what's happening next with new guests, publications, and events. And when you spread the word about 1850 Main Street, you're helping others find real answers to the real questions facing America right now. To learn more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. And please, tell a friend.
If you did 4 woke movies and all 4 flopped and lost $1 billion, would you continue to move forward with the next woke project? Well, you
know what Walt and his brother would be doing? Because Walt and his brother had those experiences when they were pushing into sound animation and the multiple beautiful colored animation that they were doing with the multiple artistic colors and all that was involved. They were losing money like crazy. Walt and his brother made up all the difference on music sales. I mean, they literally were going bankrupt on one side and had to make money the other side. This Disney is I mean, they've got the nosedive on the corporation. They double down, triple down, quadruple down, and go political.
So how long before the shareholders say enough? The customers have already said enough. You used to have an expression that I loved, and the game is to beat the mouse. and beat the mouse at all the ways the mouse tries to beat you out of your money.
When you live in Central Florida, you have to learn how to beat the mouse. Yeah.
Or even how to navigate traffic to beat the mouse. It may not even be going to the park.
Don't feed the mouse.
Don't feed the mouse. Got to beat the mouse.
Or he will eat you.
He's kind of beating himself, isn't he?
Yeah, at this stage in the game. Now,
what can America learn from Disney?
Well, there's another connection in all of this because we've also been talking a lot about this Harvard study as to who owns the media in the United States of America. And the Harvard study is significant because it's Harvard. Now, all that Harvard's doing is basically quantifying in boxes and flowcharts the stuff that a lot of people around the media, you and I have been talking about for years on your radio program and on our radio program on the Public Square. We've been talking about this for years. The consolidation of corporate media. Disney is a corporate media consolidator. They own a boatload of stuff. They're considered in the Harvard study the 5th largest media outlet in the United States. And they have all of their conglomerates, ABC, ABC News, ESPN, ESPN 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, LMNOP, all that other stuff. They've got a boatload of stuff. One of the things that's interesting is when you look at a national story from the Associated Press, which now has gone so far woke, they make NPR look middle of the road. AP has gone so far. The first narrative repeater on AP stories is always ABC News. On every Google page, boom, ABC News is the first one to repeat the narrative of the Associated Press. So they are in the forefront of the woke media reality. That's Disney. That's the mouse. See, he's not walking around Main Street any longer selling Carnation Milk Company ice cream cones. He's out peddling narratives to kids. So what can America learn? Michael, it's a tough story. It's like we watch publicly, we watch large foundations. People who rise up in America, make a lot of money, help a lot of people, establish a charitable foundation for after they're gone to continue good works. And less than a half a generation, 20 years later, these things are gone completely afield. They're just sowing seeds that the founders of these foundations would never have wanted to have happen. You hate to realize this, but Walt died in the 60s. I mean, now we're 50, 60 years past his passing, and you know what? It's not the same world anymore.
I remember when they started airbrushing out, because he did all of his stand-up monologues with a cigarette in his hand. And remember they airbrushed out the cigarette and the smoke meticulously. Yeah. Now they've airbrushed him completely out.
Yeah. He if he walked down, I would shudder to think of the cartoon that could be drawn of Walt Disney walking down Main Street today.
I keep coming back in awe. Even everybody else's money, eventually you'll run out of, as they look to overcome all of this and what it's costing them in brand. And as we talked about on the morning show.
That's your morning show with Michael DelGiorno. That's also available on the iHeart app. Their answer to all of this is to keep going in this direction, no matter what it costs. Raise park fees. In other words, they're going to try to milk. It is very similar to government. Once you've spent every money, then you raise taxes to spend more of their money. But this ain't America, and there are options. And I can tell you, I'm just one family. And I was one of the biggest. You should have seen me when my kids were very young at the Disney store. You with those girls, I could imagine. It was unbelievable. Like because that's what Walt meant to me. That's what creativity and imagination meant to me. Yeah. That's what all my childhood memories meant to me. And it just ended. And I took them once because what childhood can't go to Disney World? You have to go. And even the kids mutually agreed, never again. And we've gone to Dollywood ever since. So I can tell you, they've lost me, and they lost a pretty big ticket. About the only thing I would tell you now, if I had to think of something good, I'll think of past movies. And I know that same talent's there, and they could create it today, but they're choosing not to. And they're celebrating those choices.
And their cruise line, you will have some of the best service and food of your life on a beautiful boat. But I don't even, like I pass Starbucks every day. I won't give them my money.
No, me neither. And the reason I won't give Starbucks my money is because they have a hard time making coffee. In the last 5 years,
there's better reasons than that. But yeah,
I've gone once each year to see if I could walk in and say, "Can I just please have a regular cup of coffee?"
And they don't know what to do with that.
And now that I'm drinking decaf because of you, because you can't drink caffeine and get up every morning at 3, you just can't do it. I forget that. So yeah, these major iconic brands have changed.
How long can they get away with this, though?
It's going to be interesting to watch. Now, we know they've got a lot of lawyers, and we have an office in Central Florida and with the Florida Policy Roundtable. And so we watch very carefully what's going on there. We're not anti their corporation at all, nor are we certainly not anti their history. I still wear the Mickey Mouse watch. But I think this is an important lesson for America, that corporations today in the communications and telecommunications world think that there is no accountability that matters, that they can lose $1 billion on 4 films and make it up on something else.
Or eventually culture will catch up with their stand.
Yeah. I mean, they have, as you used the word gospel, that's a very strong word. They are literally sacrificing billions of dollars for their agenda.
Well, and then there's another side of the story that we didn't do that most people gravitate towards, which is the gotcha is, well, you look at this and you go, well, it doesn't make any sense to do this to your shareholders, to lose billions on these woke concepts of movies and yada, yada, yada. But meanwhile, there are studio heads or people in high positions who are making a real name for themselves at the expense of Disney. I just can't imagine Disney's that dumb. I mean, I think there has to be buy-in. You can't have rogue CEOs that are capitalized.
How long is it going to take to catch up with them? That's the key. Now, you say, well, there's plenty of other alternatives. And I'm not going to lie. It could happen to me. It could happen tonight. I could get a weak moment, go back, dig out my old VHS, stick in my old Davy Crockett series from the 1960s and watch Fess Parker as Davy Crockett and with the whole thing, because kids growing up in the 60s, I mean, that was the greatest thing in the world.
It was great storytelling.
Yeah.
With great lessons, great characters, great performances. Why is that not important anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, That was like these cheesy little films you get in school. Or remember the old propaganda films and showing the soldiers putting their socks on?
Well, just look at the old classic Mickey Mouse cartoons compared to the ones that they put out today. Yeah, that tells you the whole thing. Here's the question, I think, is how long can they survive in the current mindset? I think everybody ought to watch that because Disney's going to teach a lesson to the American economy for sure.
They led the way to shut down with COVID.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll prove to America you can't divide your way to unity.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.